Welcome everyone. I want to welcome everyone to Beta Theta Pi, the Alpha Alpha chapter at Columbia University. Thank you all for being here. Today we have the pleasure of having Professor Keene and Professor de Bary speak with us. Today, in today's world, in the era of globalization, East is meeting West. I think, and personally, it's important to me as a Middle Eastern history major, that these philosophical and ideological, what should we call them, texts, philosophies in general, should be mixed and should be understood as capable of advancing us in terms of our character, in terms of our virtues, in terms of our intellect. And today I want to have a real discussion about Asian humanities at Columbia and CORE, as well as the introduction of these philosophies into our Western world. So I'm going to put the microphone right here, let these men and gentlemen talk with us about these serious issues, and hopefully generate some questions and have a great discussion. So thank you everyone for coming.
I'm just gonna try to have this guy turn it up. Yeah. If you guys want to start talking, just turn it up as we go.
Anybody have a question?
You guys have any prepared comments?
Well, I, of course, have the liberty of having a little more information than everyone else, but perhaps as an introduction, would you guys like to tell us how you met?
Well, we didn't meet in Columbia College. We met when we showed up in California to join the Navy Japanese language program. And just happened that Don was a year or two after me in the college. So we didn't meet in classes. And we were engaged in various activities of the kind of Columbia students get into, both on campus and off campus. We just happened not to meet. And so what made us friends from the beginning was that we were both products of the Columbia Corps. And intellectually we were engaged almost from the beginning. Now I had gotten into this in my freshman year in 1937 at college, when I went to my first CC class. The teacher was Harry Carman. You recognize that name? Well, you must recognize it because it's on the
We're looking at it.
All right? But he was then a professor of American history. He was a specialist in early American history, especially the history of agriculture. But at the very first meeting of that class, he said, "You know that contemporary civilization here just means Western civilization. And I hope that some of you will prepare yourselves to bring Asia in to the humanities and CC courses." Well, I was sitting there, first class in my college career, and I was very susceptible for almost any suggestion that was made. So I started Chinese. And I studied Chinese in college and then went on to Japanese later. But in the meantime, I think I should let Donald tell what he was doing when he was in college.
I was a year after Ted. I'd heard about him. He was known as a big man on campus. I saw him once. There was a concert. I think it might have been Toscanini conducting the NBC Symphony Orchestra. I was sitting downstairs, and then there was someone in the balcony, the first row, and people said, "That's Ted de Bary." So I knew what he looked like even before we met. My beginning with East Asian studies, I came because of a a strange coincidence, an accident. In the humanities class, which was taught by Mark Van Doren, a very marvelous and memorable person, the seating was by alphabet, letters of the alphabet. And so Keene, for K, sat next to a Chinese named Li. I had never before known a Chinese, but seeing this man next to me 4 days a week from 9 to 10, I became friendly with him, and eventually he became absolutely my closest friend at the university. And it was because of him that I first began to read English translations of works from Chinese. I'll tell you a secret, which was, I shouldn't say this before Ted de Bary. At his suggestion, I read the Analects of Confucius, and I found it extremely boring. And I thought, well, I had read Plato and Aristotle in the humanities class. That Confucius was no match for Plato or Aristotle. But gradually, as we became friendly, I asked him to teach me some Chinese characters, and he did. I learned characters, but he came from the south part of China, Canton, and he didn't think I should learn the Cantonese pronunciations. And so all I learned was the meaning of characters without knowing any sound, no sound at all. It really wasn't until my senior year when, by another accident, someone had seen me eating at the local Chinese restaurant every day with my Chinese friend. Said, wouldn't you like to learn Japanese? Well, as a matter of fact, I didn't want to learn Japanese because there was a war going on, and the war was between Japan and China, and I was completely on the side of China. But there was a temptation involved, which was the place where we would study Japanese was at this man's house in the mountains of North Carolina, and I wanted to go there. I thought to be much more attractive than New York in the summer. And so I spent the summer of 1941 studying with a Japanese tutor and 3 other people. And in the beginning, and then I returned to the university, and I decided to go on with both Chinese and Japanese in my senior year. And the senior year, 1941, was marked, as you all know, in December by the outbreak of the Pacific War. But by this time, I was already completely involved with East Asia.
And so we met there in Berkeley and became friends right away. And it wasn't long after that that the school was moved to Boulder, Colorado. And then I persuaded my college sweetheart to get on the train in New York. She was a Barnard girl. She came out, met me in Denver. We were married there. And Donald arrived on the scene in Boulder just after that, and they became great friends right away. So they remained that. Unfortunately, Fanny died last a couple of years ago now. And so that ended it for both of us. But Fanny was a good friend of Donald's throughout the years and became a close member of our family and attended many of our family occasions. So I think my children refer to him as Uncle Donald. So it was a very, very close personal relationship, as well as our mutual interest in China and Japan. After the war, we came back here. I had started graduate study at Harvard, but when I heard what Donald had to say about his Japanese teacher, Tsunoda, it sounded much better than anything I was getting at Harvard. So I resumed my graduate studies at Columbia, and we both finished here. Yes.
Were you going to skip over what you did